We will paint the immortal. Today, my wizard friends, we will paint the immortal space dog.
This figure is called Space Dog. It is by an artist named Han Ning, and I am painting a small edition for the Beijing Toy Show. So in this tutorial, I'm just going to do a walkthrough on how I paint this figure. This will be the finished figure right here. The piece is made out of vinyl, so it's kind of like a plastic, but it's a little soft. You could kind of squish it a little bit. There's a couple things I do to kind of prep the piece before I paint it. The first thing I do is I just wash it with soap and water. This just removes any oils on it that might be on there. And then I give it a really light mist of primer. This is Krylon plastic primer. I'm a big fan of the Krylon products. One of the reasons is this super fine mist nozzle, which really just like sprays out this super misty cloud. So you get a really nice coverage. It doesn't really drip or run. It also says it's made with fusion for plastic paint technology. I don't know what that means, but I feel like I need it. So it is washed and primered. Now we can begin painting. The first layer of paint here is a Payne's Gray, which is basically a black with just a hint of blue. This is the first of several colors that will be layered on top of each other. So for this layer, I'm not really worried if it's blotchy or if there's streaks. All the other layers are going to eventually cover up about 90% of this. Also, I actually kind of like it when the base layers are splotchy because that just kind of adds texture, especially when mixed with the other colors. So I'm really just trying to get this layer on as fast as I can before it starts to dry in certain areas. And I actually add a tiny bit of water to the paint just to prolong the dry time. The nice thing about a lot of vinyl toys is they're hollow and they'll have these little holes here, so you can kind of wiggle up a stick or a paintbrush handle, and that kind of acts as a handle to get paint 360 degrees around the piece without having to touch it with your fingers. And then basically the exact same thing for painting the head. So next I will put a coat of interference blue over the body. I love the golden fluid interference colors. Basically, they interfere with the light spectrum, so by blocking out certain parts of the light spectrum, you can only really see the color when light hits it at certain angles. So I'm using a pretty big brush here, and again, I'm putting a layer on that I'm not obsessing about in terms of making sure that it's completely opaque or splotchy. Because this really is just a color that's going to be a kind of texture that's very subtle underneath, as well as the polka dot texture. The interference colors are a little bit tricky if you're trying to get a nice, even, consistent coat. If you overwork them, they can definitely get a little bit milky and splotchy. But that's really why I kind of use them mainly as accent colors, and they work great for dry brushing a final layer just to get a little bit of sheen. And this is the look that we're going to be going for, just a few polka dots kind of evenly spread out. And then you'll see the next step after that is we're going to dry brush a purple and a gold on top of that, and that'll really kind of just highlight the polka dots. So the next step is to apply these little stickers to create some polka dots. And it's super important that these two layers are completely dry. You don't want to put the stickers in if they're a little bit wet, because when you pull the stickers off, the paint will peel up. I am trying to place the stickers on the flatter surfaces. If I try to wrap the sticker around, say, the bottom of the leg or something, then it really likes to peel up. So the first layer I'm going to put on top is a brilliant purple, and I'm using a brush that is a little bit beat up. One of the things I'm trying to do here is create a whole bunch of layers on top of each other with texture. So having a brush that's a little ragged at the tip is just going to kind of create a lot of streaky marks. That'll pick up some of the texture of the layers underneath. Dry brushing on top of these little dots can be a little bit tricky because they don't really stick down that well. So you'll see as I'm painting, I'm constantly going back and kind of pushing down on them to get them to stick, to get that round shape. And you'll also notice that as I'm dry brushing, I'm always kind of starting in the center and going out. That's kind of preventing paint from getting underneath the little dot if it does start to peel up. So I load just a tiny bit of paint on the brush here, and then you can see I'm brushing it off even more on the palette paper. And then I'll give it even one more brush off on my glove before I start painting. A lot of times when I'm dry brushing, it's a very fast and aggressive kind of movement, but for this piece, I'm a little bit more controlled. Obviously, I have to be careful about the dots, but I also want to make sure that I get kind of some large brush textures in there from the bristles on the brush. So sometimes it's almost like I'm stamping the brush onto the piece and then pulling the brush down a little bit. And then I'll come on top of that and kind of brush it out and blend it into the other marks. Painting on top of Han's signature right here is a great example of what dry brushing can do. If I just lightly brush across the surface, all of the lettering that's in that recessed area will stay the base color of the blue and the iridescent. I'll also change my brushes out pretty frequently. As soon as you start, the paint begins to dry on the brush, and after a little while it kind of gunks up the bristles. So in order to keep kind of a similar texture, I'll just pull out a new brush as soon as I feel like one brush is starting to lose it. Then I'm going to dry brush a layer of iridescent bright gold. I'm using a filbert that's a little bit bigger. I'm going to be a little bit more aggressive here. But I still have to be a little bit careful because you can see that the little dots are still peeling up a little bit. So I just want to make sure I get the gold on without them falling off. So much more of a quick light dusting here with just a little bit of paint on the brush. Big bushy brushes work really well for a layer like this. And by having just a super light layer on top, if you look up close here, you can see that you can really just see all of the textures of the previous layers. And then usually I'll pick a few spots on each sculpture to kind of highlight the gold. So on this piece, I'm going to spend a little bit more time on the bottoms of the feet as well as the tail, and then also underneath the body where Han's signature is. And then this is my favorite part here, removing the little stickers. This is where you get to see if all of your meticulous painting paid off. I just use the point of an X-Acto knife and very carefully peel them off. You really just have to make sure that you don't scratch the paint at this point. The head is pretty much the same thing as the body, which is a couple things to point out. After I put the interference blue on, I come back with the Payne's gray and I just kind of darken up the shadows under the ears a little bit. And then the rest is just the same as the body. I dry brush the purple, then I dry brush the iridescent gold. I highlight a couple areas for the face here. I'm highlighting the ears as well as the nose. And then I paint a little bit of white on the eyes, and then pull the stickers off with the X-Acto knife. So the figure has this little collar in between the helmet and the dog. It starts out originally as kind of a piece of hard acrylic, and I am going to spray paint that with a metallic silver paint. So I loop it into a little piece of fishing line, and then I give it 3 coats of paint. The first coat is just a really light mist. I let that one dry, come back and I do a second one. The second one is also a really light mist. And then I let that one dry, and then I come back, and the third one is a little bit more of a heavier coat. Getting a nice even coat that's super shiny with metallic paints is a little bit tricky, but with 2 light coats and then a third coat that's a little bit heavier, generally it does the trick. The heavier third coat just lets it build up a little bit more to really get kind of that bright chrome look. My favorite metallic paint that comes in a spray can is this Rust-Oleum metallic finish. It's a little weird though, because if you look at the cap is kind of like a dullish aluminum color, which is a little bit misleading because they also have a metallic series, a specialty metallic series, but honestly I think this one gives a more of a metallic finish than this one, regardless of what the top of the can says. But you know, spray can companies are always rebranding. This is a good case in point here. Exact same paint. This was bought like a month later, so it's a new can, new label. So they're always rebranding their paint, and they're also always changing their formulas. So the best thing to do is just try a bunch out, find out what you like. Duplicolor Automotive chrome finish used to make an awesome chrome paint, but a while back they changed their formula, which is kind of a bummer, but a lot of people who use it have been sending mean emails to Duplicolor, so hopefully they fix that and change it back to the original formula, because this stuff really you know, looked like a chrome bumper. It really looked like this. But until this gets fixed, Rust-Oleum metallic finish. I've even gotten these cans before and it says aluminum metallic finish, so it's just weird. Just got to do a little R&D and find out which one works for you. So now all the pieces are painted and we just have to assemble everything. I really like the engineering that went into designing this piece. There's all these little grooves and holes for all the pieces to snap in together. And once everything's locked in, it really is a solid piece. A lot of times I'll finish the piece off with a spray varnish. I use a Krylon matte finish. But I didn't varnish this piece because of the iridescent and interference colors. That sheen and reflection you get from those colors just kind of disappears with the varnish. So here's the finished piece. Thanks Han for letting me paint a few of these. If you like the video, feel free to share it or like it or comment it. All that stuff helps YouTube's algorithm get the video out to a wider audience. Up in the top right corner here is another painting demo on another little designer toy of mine called the Angry Cat Spirit. Other than that, thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.
Don't panic, don't jump me, don't stop the just rap. Don't panic, don't jump me, don't stop the just rap. Don't panic, don't jump me, don't